Book Show. Dee and I just kind of started chatting there. So Dee, you're a writer in general. I mean, you've written screenplays, you've written television shows, treatments for things. But was this process different for you? And also, when did you decide to write the book?
Well, writing prose is very different than writing a screenplay. And I just had a feeling. Well, I actually recently, in the last year, wrote my first short story. So, and I never just sort of read it and said, I'm feeling pretty good about this. When Simon & Schuster approached me about doing my memoirs, I said, you know what? Yeah, I've got something to say, and I'm ready to write them. And they said, oh, well, Dee, people don't write their own. You know, we have someone to work with you. And I said, well, I'd really like to get a shot at it. I said, look, can I write a couple of chapters? If you don't like it, I'm cool. I'll work with somebody else. And they said, oh, well, go. And I was kind of like, okay, go ahead, write a couple of chapters. I sent it to the editor, and he said, wow, we love it. You've got a great voice. Do it on your own. Do it yourself. So I said, you know, how many words you want? He says 75,000. So at 150,000, I said, I'm only halfway through the book. He said, what are we going to do with that? I said, look, I'm a new writer. I can't self-edit. I don't know what is important and what's me just blowing smoke up my own butt, you know? I said, let me just write it and you edit it and I won't question you. So when it was finished, it was 210,000 words. They reduced it to 140. So volume 2 is waiting at the house.
And it's such a great book, Dee. I mean, you really do, because you did write every word. Your voice comes through so clearly, and it's a cautionary tale, but it's a very funny book. But it's also a really sweet love letter to your family.
Well, you hit all the beats. I mean, I hope it's a little bit inspirational as well. I mean, you know, for a kid to decide at like 9 years old that he wanted to be something that was, you know, impossible. You're going to be a rock star. I'm going to be a Beatle. And, you know, and just by growing up in a lower middle class neighborhood, I was sort of destined to be insurance guy, civil service worker, you know, and everybody telling me that's all you're going to be. And me just my entire life going, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to achieve this. And just by force of will, I did it.
And before you became a rock star, actually, you and I have something in common. We both went to All-State Choir.
All-State?
I totally did. New York.
New York this month?
Uh-huh.
Right on.
I certainly did.
All right. What was your rating?
I believe it was a 6A.
Ooh, sweet. That's the best. 6. See, grade 6 is the level of music. A is your rating.
Do you remember what you sang?
Strike the Viol by Francis Purcell. Yes.
Fantastic. Because your choir teacher sounded a lot like mine. We only did classical music. We had to have perfect posture when we set up. We only sang in quartets, a cappella as well, but it was fantastic training.
Well, I did all, you know, I was in a magical barbershop and stuff like that. But one difference, she did not make us stand perfect posture. She was very encouraging for us to sort of to get into the music. And when I got my 6A rating, they wrote one negative comment: moves too much. Because here I am with this big hair, I'm in my choir gown, and I'm rocking back and forth because I just can't stand still.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned something too. I was rocking out and stuff, and your hair. Let it be known that this is Dee's real hair now, and then it was always his real hair.
Yes, and it's still on my head. Thankfully.
Yeah, do you want to give out that trade secret?
You mean what? That it's still on my head?
Yeah.
Yes, this is my hair. It's one of the things that bothers me more than anything is people that say, wearing his fright wig wasn't a wig. I mean, it was such a chore to keep that just managed, combing it every day. And my wife, when she would do my roots, it was like a full day process. I remember literally laying on the kitchen counter because I've been on the road for like months, so the roots like this long, and she said, she's cursing me out, I got to do this in sections. So she would do like one section, and then when that was done, she'd do another. It was an entire day dedicated to doing my hair. It was
Did you have the plastic bonnet?
Well, no, that's for streaks.
Oh, okay.
No, I had that only the first time, but eventually became solid blonde, so it was just like painting on the bleach and her cursing at me the whole time. You son of 5'3", she's just like cursing me out.
Hey, which, by the way, you and Suzette have been married for 36 years. How'd you get so lucky?
You know, it's not luck. It's work, and by that I don't mean that in a negative way. It's a process. Marriage relationships are always changing. You constantly have to be working at it or it will fall apart. And we've had our times, near misses, and we've been to therapy a couple of times. And the first time I went to marriage counseling, and I really recommend it. It's just incredible, healthy thing. And you know what? Don't wait until you need it. Go beforehand and address just simmering situations. But the first thing the doctor said to us was the only difference between couples that stay together and couples that get divorced is the couples that stay together don't accept divorce as an option. So all it says there's money problems and infidelity and there's all sorts of problems. Everybody has them. But the couples that stay together say, okay, we're not getting divorced, so what are we doing? I got a little chill there, but you work it out. And when you got kids there, it really becomes even more important. I mean, this is a whole other book, people. It's a whole other book. But
there'll be another book.
Yes, you just got to remember, parents out there, you got kids, you are your kids' heroes. And in this society, there are no heroes. The reason why rock stars are heroes is because they're honest about their fallibility, so the kids can admire that at least they're honest. They live in a society where teachers and police and politicians and everybody's lying, the sports figures and ministers and preachers. Nobody is immune from failure, but they're dishonest about it, and it disappoints the kids. And if you disappoint your kid, they're just set adrift. They got nothing.
So true. And Suzette was not only did the costumes and helped you so much with your image, but that strong base that you're talking about really allowed you to become the person that you are in terms of music, and allowed you to go out on the road and do all the things you needed to do. You guys were huge in the tri-state area, and it was there that not only you've perfected your stage presence, but your awesome heckler comebacks. What are some of your faves, Dee?
Well, people were kind of like, when we struck the big time, they go, wow, how did you get so good at handling a crowd? I said, nothing beats handling a Memorial Day weekend crowd at the Jersey Shore, on like free beer night. If you can do that, you can handle anything. Like 50,000 people, 50 people in the Osprey on the Jersey Shore, Memorial Day weekend. That's a bitch. And, but I mean, one of my favorites was, I used this quite a few times, my rap, like, where are friends? Yeah, well, you're out, we're being heckled here, and we're up here, we can't do anything. You're out there, and you can. And if we were out there, we would do something for you. And then ultimately the hecklers would be beaten up and thrown out of the club.
And even Lemmy helped you out there one time too, which was very cool.
Well, Lemmy Kilmister is Saint Lemmy in Twisted Sister world. I mean, I don't want to destroy his image, but this guy is a sweet, wonderful guy. And he took Twisted Sister under his wing, saw our value. And, when we came out, there were no hair bands. There were no, Kiss had taken off their makeup. We were wearing makeup. And it was not the cool thing to do. But Lemmy just was so taken by the band and our energy, he just started coming down to shows and sort of running interference, going, hey, these guys are all right, give them a shot. And then everybody go, oh, okay, he'll give you 2 seconds. And they go, oh, Lemmy was right, they're great. And I don't know if we would be where we were if Lemmy hadn't been our guardian angel.
And you had these incredible highs, and then all of a sudden, as you talk about in the book, you start to notice the beginning of the end. And one of those things, of course, PMRC, we have to talk about that. You put in the book your actual statement, and when you revisited that, were you happy with what you said? Is there anything you wish you would have said, or how do you feel about it now?
Well, the Senate hearings brought on by the Parents Music Resource Center to discuss the labeling of records and stuff like that. I look back and I read my statement, and I still stand by every single thing I said. I've lived by everything I said, and I could go in and defend my position on everything I said. There's nothing, and I'm unusual. Most people are constantly talking about their past with regret. That's one thing I never wanted to have. I never want to look back and say, and certainly I've got certain ones. I ordered scrambled eggs one morning. I really should have had sunny side up. I'm kidding. No, but so there's little things, but for the most part, I still stand by the belief system, and I'm proud of that. So if they brought me back today to Washington and said, Mr. Snider, here's your statement. How have you lived up to this commitment? And I'll say, Senator, 30 years later, oh, hell yeah.
Interestingly, here we are 30 years later, and all things being cyclical, it seems like things are starting to go that conservative direction a little bit. There's a little bubbling under there. Does it make you nervous at all?
Yeah, well, conservatism it's always there, and it's a powerful force, an influential force. Sometimes it's out in the open, and other times it goes down below the surface. But don't be fooled; it always exists. And so right now it's starting to look like it's cyclically rising and going to be more upfront. But I think, given the choice, I'd rather see what's going on in any situation than have it hidden from me. And case in point, one of my concerns, my major concern with the censorship in the 80s was that the sticker would be used to keep music from people. And in my mind, it was like, well, they won't put it on the shelves because they'll know, which they didn't, or they won't carry it in the stores, which some stores didn't. But then it went to another level that I didn't even expect, and this was so subversive. Major conservative chains like Best Buy were forcing record companies, because of the strength of their store, to produce censored versions of records that you didn't know were censored. So if you bought the Kid Rock album, the first one, from Best Buy back there when that record was the one with Border to Bar and Cowboy Song, there was a song on that album called F Off. It isn't on the Best Buy records. And so you walked in as an adult and picked up a record, and you were getting a sense, somebody was saying, you can't hear this song. And it's one thing to censor or edit and say, this is an edited version, give it a choice. But it's another thing to decide for somebody what they can or cannot hear. And that was the scariest thing for me.
And you're very honest in the book, too, about the downward side of fame. And you did bankruptcy not once, but twice. People like me sit at home and go, how the hell does that happen?
Well, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to tell a story, because, on my way up, I would see all these rock stars who were crashing and burning and going, that's not going to be me. I don't get high. I don't do drugs. And I'm in control of my destiny. My manager's in control. I know what's going on with my manager, my accountants, my lawyers. I'm involved in everything. I'm in control. It'll never happen to me. Oh, crap. It happened to me. And I'm like, what the, and I realized, so I wanted to tell this story that, no one's too good to screw up. And I also, I want people to know I'm telling you a story about a rock star, but we all fall. And there's a great line in the Rocky Balboa movie where Rocky says it doesn't matter how many times you get knocked down, it's that you just keep getting back up. And that's the key is, I was knocked down a lot. And, and I think I've got it together this time. As I said in the book, fool me 37 times. Because I just screwed up well into my 40s. I was just still, what a mess. But I'm feeling pretty good now. It's stable. So anyway, I want to share that because I'm hoping people will get something out of it.
Your brother, Mark, who gave you this little nugget of wisdom, simple but yet profound, that really turned the tide for you and really got you on this new path. Tell us what he said.
Well, actually, that's Matt. Matt and Mark.
Sorry, Matt.
No, it's okay. Matt and Mark, I've got 4 brothers, and they get mentioned in the book in a very positive light. And I was really, what bothered me more than anything about the demise of Twisted Sister is that there was a post-band worldview that it was luck, or that somehow we were just flash in the pan, it was an accident. And we had been together 8 years before we broke, and that's not an accident. Stupidity, possibly, but not an accident. And I really wanted to show people, I had to come back to prove that it wasn't an accident. And I had a band called Desperado, and that was ill-fated and got dropped. And after 2 or 3 years, then I had a band called Widowmaker, and the music scene changed, and people weren't interested in what I was doing anymore. And that fell apart, and I was really frustrated because what am I going to do? Nobody's even interested in the type of music I do anymore. And that's when my brother Matt said to me, does it have to be music? I said, what do you mean? He said, well, if you succeed at something else, doesn't that prove your point just as well? And I was like, whoa, you're right. So at that point, I said, what else can I do? And I started to reinvent myself through radio, and then movies and screenplay writing and other things, and since then Broadway and television and whatever. And without looking back. And I have proved my point, but without having to make it do it in music again.
Not for nothing, but Donald Trump has said that, that Dee Snider, he's terrific. He's going to be okay after this. He'll have a good career.
Yeah, I know. He said I'm going to be big.
You're going to be big.
I'm gonna be, they'll probably never show you this, but in the, I can't really say too much, but I returned to the show. I can say that in the last 2 episodes, and I have the opportunity to finally do what I do best. And when Donald saw me do what I do best, he was stunned because he didn't realize that those were my songs. And I said, "Really?" And he goes, "Oh, you must have a lot of money." I said, "I'm doing pretty good, thanks, Don."